gentlemen, we're going to, enough of my chitter-chatter, we're going to begin the program in earnest. This is a great honor because we're starting at the beginning. It's an honor to welcome one of the original trailblazers of this club. His rookie year was 1975. And he was a founding member of the club. His name is Joe McCook. Where's Joe? Is Joe here? So tonight, while Joe walks up here, I'm going to share with you, he's going to take us back to the founding of that club. He's going to take it back to where it all began. He's going to share the story of how just a few passionate players started this continuum that we talked about. And it would span generations. So, ladies and gentlemen, he has arrived. The timing could not have been better. What is it? Just slapping me away. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to Joe McCook.
Who would have thought, 50 years later, Joe! I'm going to tell you a little story about how we got started and what life was like back in 1975. I was on the 6-year program at Marquette. It went to 7. The Vietnam War was just ending. I was introduced to Jeremiah, Aka, Derry, Haggerty, and his brother Joe, actually from a guy that I met at the Holiday Inn where I attended bar, Dan Curry, who was an acro linebacker at the time. He was also an alcoholic. He says, "You got to meet this Irish." I said, "Okay." So Jeremiah, or Derry, who was from County Cork, which is down at the bottom of Ireland, didn't know much about rugby. In fact, the Catholics didn't play rugby. They played hurling and Irish football. But he didn't really care about that too much. He said, after I attended bar for a while for him, he said, "So I understand you want to start a rugby team here." Joe, his brother, never played rugby. He said, "Do they drink?" I said, "Yeah, a lot." He says, "Okay, well, here, go right ahead. Start this rugby team." Derry was an accountant by trade prior to starting the bar. Joe had served in Vietnam as an expat, which was required back then. So we started the rugby club by recruiting. We had 4 or 5 doctors on the team. There was a big contingent from Marquette where I had gone to school. By that time I had finished. There were no jobs available at that time. So most of us worked construction. I worked high-rise tuck pointing with Jack O'Brien and Company, who was a big sponsor of the club, by the way. So anyway, Joe Haggerty, his brother, who could hardly walk, never mind run, played with the team. And we were called Derry's Rugby Club. Our first scrimmage was with Beaver Dam, and a contingent of the Milwaukee guys. Now, why didn't we join Milwaukee? Well, quite frankly, we didn't like the way we had been treated when we were in college, and subservient. And we decided that we could do this. We could compete with Milwaukee. Ironically, 3 years into the club's existence, we tied Milwaukee. Milwaukee won the national championship 2 years later. That's how far we had come. So the key to our success actually was completely accidental. We were coming back to the bar one night, and you know, the causeway to the Brewer Stadium is where we practiced. And we ran into Joe Kloiber. Joe Kloiber said, "Isn't that a rugby ball?" Yeah, it is. So about a half hour later, Joe ends up back in his apartment on 52nd and Wisconsin Avenue in tells Julie, who's here, I think you all know Julie. I got some interesting news for you, Julie. I just became a rugby coach. Now, Julie knew what that meant because Joe had a standout career in Madison, and we were off to the races. So, while I was the first president, and Joe was like president for the next 20 straight years, there was a difference between our styles. I was fit for the field, and it was called big belly up the middle. And Joe Kloiber had organizational skills. He had been to Wales. He knew what the culture had to transfer into. The first thing we did is we organized a trip to Versailles and Ireland. None of us had been overseas at that point. Our first game ever as a club was in Limerick, Ireland. And we played against a team that had Jerry McLaughlin on their team. I stayed with Jerry, and I said, Jerry, I understand you're a pretty good player. What are some of the teams you played for? I've got 22 caps for Ireland and the British Lions. And I go, what did you say? A lot of the guys on the presentation club, and by the way, they played on a field called Gary Owen Field. That's an up and under. An up and under, they have a field that's named after the guy that started the up and under in rugby. I think we're in trouble. So these guys were very magnanimous, and they said, we're going to give you our forwards coach to help you guys out. And he took us into this small room, and this guy took us through the paces, and he said, you know, you can win today. We've been in existence for 2 years, and we're in a different country. There's a war going on just north in Belfast. Pretty heady stuff for somebody that thought they were going to have a few beers in Ireland. So the whole village is there. The game kicks off. They didn't really cut the grass too much. It's about this high. There's horses in the end zone. We start the game. We ended up winning something like 14-12. We won. Are you kidding me? That was the beginning of the pride of the Harlequins and the Barbarians. And it didn't stop. The focus of our club has always been enthusiasm, engagement, participation. And that doesn't matter if you're a good player or not. Some of the biggest contributors to our club initially was a household full of guys that were like 45 that didn't even play or couldn't. And they did the most for the club. What matters is that you care about one another. Make sure that you're helping the club out to the best of your ability for whatever time you have to contribute. That's what counts. The rest of it will take care of itself. Now, we ended up becoming, the notoriety of our club grew. All of a sudden, we were equal to Milwaukee. We beat Madison right away. They were the other big club in the state. You know, now there's like 20-some clubs in universities. That didn't exist back then. There was no UWM. There was a small contingent at Marquette. But all the state schools ended up getting rugby clubs after that. So a lot of things had to happen, and the keys to success that I think are important are to keep it simple and have fun. And a style of play. You know, Milwaukee had what they had called the rolling scrum, rolling maul. And they were very, very good at it. Well, we countered that. We ended up with a lot of people that had either had played rugby or were brand new, just good athletes. Brienzos, we had 8 sets of brothers. That's a full squad. Dan, Dave, Manzo. The Landrys, Mike and Joe, stand up. Annie, stand up. The Lawlers. Tim is no longer with us. Doc Lawler was from Notre Dame. The Plants. Coakleys. Chuck, stand up. The Atkins. Where are the Atkins? I want to talk to you. The Daddy-Olas. The Dan's no longer with us. The Schusters. You know, there's a lot of people that I'm not going to mention here, and I don't mean any harm. You know, Dirty Ed, Dan Jones, who's passed away recently, Max McGee, Al Jakely, goes on and on. But basically, we had a group of people that believed in one another, and I call it a family affair, which is kind of an oxymoron because there's probably a few divorces created. We did everything together, and the occupations are across the board too. We had 4 or 5 doctors. I was stitched up on Joe Haggerty's pool table at least 3 times. So a lot has happened since then, and a lot is going to happen in the future. Again, the keys to success are participating and having fun. It's that simple. We developed a brotherhood, and it's 50 years old.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you for that perspective.